Hey everybody, and welcome back to FSi DFS. I'm McKinley 412. We're going to be looking at the 7-game early slate for Wednesday here. There's a 6-game slate happening later in the night. Might have some comments, might have some thoughts in the comments section below as we go throughout the day closer to lock, probably after this slate here locks. But for now, just the early slate that we're breaking down. Go through every single pitcher, talk about strengths, weaknesses, all that kind of stuff. Talk about the stacks, and let's just dive into it. Mitch Keller, 10.8K, something I thought I would never say, and it's pretty justifiable, honestly. He has been phenomenal. He's got like 5 or 6 straight starts with 8 or more strikeouts. He's got a great park boost going and pitching in San Francisco. San Francisco as a team, lots of strikeouts in their lineup, especially against right-handed pitching. They have the 5th highest team strikeout rate against right-handed pitching in the past month. And like I said, Keller, he's got great strikeout upside and just kind of like a floor. That's what he provides us with, essentially. He provides us with a floor so far this season on the slate, which is fantastic. So is he a great play? Sure. Can you fit in the 10.8K with the bats and the limited value that I think is on the slate? We'll see. We'll do that. We'll talk about a little bit more about that when we get to the builds. Zach Eflin, next up, going up against the Cubs in Chicago in Wrigley. Pay attention to the weather here. There's 2 games in Chicago happening on this slate. And obviously, both of them have some rain threats to them. Looks like some scattered thunderstorms, like 30-40% chance of rain throughout the day. Nothing more, but those pop-up showers are slightly concerning, especially when you're talking about DFS and, pitching. Because once that, pop-up shower happens in the middle of the 4th inning, your pitcher's done. He's just done. So it kind of stinks, but pay close attention to that weather. Eflin, here we go. He's been kind of up and down so far this season. He's had some solid starts with great strikeout rate, and he's had some starts where he can't strike anybody out, it seems. So he's kind of been like that high ceiling, low floor kind of pitcher so far. Again, pay attention to the weather, but I do think this is a GPP only play. And regardless of the weather, take the part out of it. I do think it's a GPP play only, just because he doesn't provide as much of a floor for you as he does, or as a guy like Keller does. Below him, Bieber. Gone are the days of Bieber pitching at like a 34% strikeout clip. Like, it's just not happening. He's got 11 starts so far this season. Only 2 of them has he had more than 4 strikeouts. So when you don't have that strikeout upside, paying 9.4K in a small ballpark against a great offense is something that I do not have a lot of interest in. He's only got 1 start so far of those 11 starts with more than 20 DK points. So again, Shane Bieber, like, gone are the days where of that crazy high strikeout rate. So I don't really have too much interest in it because high price tag, low strikeout rate, small ballpark, tough matchup. All those things combined, not too much interest. Steele, kind of on the opposite side of this Eflin game. Pay attention to the weather. But yeah, so Steele, phenomenal start to the season, was lights out, saw his price tag above like 10K for a little bit there. He's kind of come back down to earth though in his past handful of starts, and he's just got a brutal matchup going up against Tampa Bay. So maybe, with the weather, there's going to be some wind blowing in. If that's the case, obviously he's going to have a little bit more interest to me, but at this point in time, anybody going up against Tampa Bay, I just don't have a whole lot of interest in, especially when you throw in some pop-up showers as a threat. Lance Lynn for the White Sox going up against the Angels. I really think that Lynn's in a nice spot here. Lynn is he's a workhorse in terms of like DFS purposes, in terms of like he's going to get you 100 pitches, which is great. He had that just horrendous start to the season, kind of ballooned his ERA quite a lot, but he's turned it around. Past handful of starts, he's got 4 of his past 5 starts of 20 or more DK points. The Angels, they're not a terrible matchup by any means. They're pretty average in terms of strikeout rate against right-handed pitchers. They're pretty average in terms of their WRC plus. But again, it is another game in Chicago, so pay attention to the weather. But I do really like Lynn at this price tag, especially given our other options that we have available to us. Berea for the Angels, his last appearance was a bullpen stint in like the 10th inning a couple of days ago, but they say that it's not going to impact his start here today. But still, he's probably only good for like 60 to 70 pitches. So do you want to go him, or do you want to go the guy that's going to pretty much guarantee you 40 more pitches? Similar, I don't want to say similar matchups. Obviously, the Angels are a tougher matchup than the White Sox are, but in terms of like strikeout rates, they're right next to each other in the standings. So again, pay attention to the weather. But Berea, I don't have a whole lot of interest just because he's not going to go super far into the game. Maybe he goes like only 5 innings. Dunning, right below him, he's got a better matchup going up against Detroit. On paper, it looks like it. But I did some more research, and within the past 30 days, Detroit actually has a really low team strikeout rate against right-handed pitching. I think they're like the 5th lowest strikeout rate, which is quite a shock to me. But then, like, you look at what they've been able to do, and they've kind of crept up the standings here quite a bit. They've been pretty decent overall in the past month. But it is still Detroit. It can certainly disappoint us for sure. Dunning's coming back from a paternity leave, so he got a little bit extra rest, or maybe he didn't get any rest at all because he's watching a newborn. But yeah, so his pitch count, it's going to be back up closer to like 90s. I think he's a decent play, but I still think that Lance Lynn is a much better play in terms of this mid-tier. Syndergaard, I don't have any interest in Syndergaard whatsoever. I know he's going up against Washington, but Washington, we know by now, they just don't strike out as a team. They're not a great offense, but they do have very low strikeout rates, and Syndergaard's just not a great pitcher. I'm just not going to pay $7K for him. I'll take the 2 guys below him, Alex Wood and Schuster, for sure. I do think that Schuster is a better play here, just a little bit cheaper than Wood by a couple $100, but just excellent matchup going up against Oakland, who's having a historically bad season. He had a really rough first 2 starts in the majors this season, got sent back down, came back up, and in his past 3 starts since coming back up to the majors, he's been doing just fine in much tougher matchups than Oakland. So I do think that he's my favorite cheap play on this slate, and Alex Wood is going to be right behind him. Big ground ball pitcher. Fantastic park to be pitching in San Francisco. Pittsburgh, they had the hot start to the season, and they've just kind of been on a spiral ever since. There's nothing wrong with Alex Wood by any means, but I'll still take Jared Schuster over him. So this is kind of where the sheet kind of shakes things out. Kind of what I just kind of went over. Let me put my picture over there so you guys can see. But Keller, obviously top play in those top tiers. Eflin, I think, is more of a GPP boom bust kind of guy. Bieber and Steele, they're on there, but I don't have a whole lot of interest in either one of them, all things considered. Lynn, absolutely love him. Think he's going to be my favorite mid-tier option, far above Berea or Dunning. And then Schuster over Wood for me. Everybody else is pretty much a fade. Corbin, I don't want any interest in him. I will say he's been much better this season than he has been in years past, but still a tough matchup against the Dodgers can be a fade for me. And then Wentz, no thank you. Caprillion, Oakland, no. So let's turn to the bats. Atlanta, Dodgers, and Texas. I feel like that's like your big 3 in terms of, I didn't see any odds yet, but I would assume that these are like your 3 largest implied run totals on the entire slate. I am recording this the night before, but I do think that Atlanta is going to be number 1. Going up against Caprillion and Oakland, and just that absolutely dreaded Oakland bullpen. Just brutal. So I'm going to have a lot of interest in Atlanta. You really can't go wrong anywhere. If you wanted to jam in Acuna, if you want to jam in Olsen, I mean, they're pricey. 5.7, 6.4. If you want to throw in a guy like Mitch Keller as your SP1, it's going to be a little bit dicey, but there is some value that you could find, but it's not abundant, we'll put it that way. But you could maybe even get a guy like Rosario in a nice lefty-righty matchup at 2.5K. Maybe batting like 6th in the order. Sure, fine spot there. So maybe Atlanta could be... all right, I think Atlanta is the top play in terms of my opinion on the slate. But I do think Dodgers are going to be right behind them going up against Corbin. Like I said, I know he's been better so far this season, but still, I don't trust it. He allows a lot of hard contact, and that's not what you want to do against a team like the Dodgers. As I'm kind of like looking through their lineup here, Vargas at 3.1K, maybe that's another value play that you can kind of jam in, so that you can go up to a more expensive, so that you can fit in a guy like Keller and Lynn instead of Keller and Schuster or Lynn and Schuster. But do you want to pay up for Keller? I don't know. I feel like that's something that I'm going to be thinking about as we get closer to lock and I do some more research. But can't really go wrong with a lot of the Dodgers bats. Corbin is a left-handed pitcher, but he's a equal splits pitcher. So lefties, righties, doesn't really matter. Jam them in. They're going to be pricey, though. They got 5 guys above 5K. So it's going to be tough to do like a larger stack of the Dodgers. And then Texas, I mean, they're even more expensive. They got Semien at 6K, Seager at 5.9. Jung, he's fantastic. He's going to be a fun guy to be paying attention to for the next decade in baseball here. So 5.1K, very expensive, but maybe jam him in. We all know that I love Jonah Heim at 4.5K. Yeah, pretty much it. So like, while I really like Texas and I really like their matchup going up against Wentz, like Wentz has been an absolute disaster. I do think that the price tags can, throw a little bit of a wrench into things. They don't have as much value as like a guy like Vargas or Rosario that you can find with the Dodgers in Atlanta. But I do think Texas is just another part of the 3-headed monster of this slate. I'm just curious. Let's just throw in Young here. We'll throw in Seager. Let's just see what happens if we just absolutely overload with studs in terms of salary. So we throw in Schuster, let's throw in the cheap guy, and then we'll throw in Lynn. 3.1K. Hey, it's possible. You can absolutely do it. But if you want, we'll take out Seager. We'll bump Lynn up to Keller. 3.3. Totally possible. What if you did Keller and Lynn? 2.6. Ooh, gets a little tight there. But you can see, so maybe salary isn't as tight as I thought at the start of the video if you got guys like Vargas and you got guys like Rosario that you could put into your lineup. In terms of GPP, the Angels I think are really interesting. Going up against the White Sox. I know I said that Landon was my favorite mid-tier pitcher, but again, he can fall apart fast. He's a workhorse and they want to keep him in there and he keeps pitching. So if he's not doing well, they kind of keep him going, just kind of right the ship. And then that White Sox bullpen is pretty dicey, right behind him as well. So I do think that the Angels can be a very intriguing GPP play with their big bats and the similarly priced like expensive bats like Trout, Ohtani, Renfroe, those guys, they're going to be matching the salaries of these top dogs of Atlanta, Dodgers, and Texas. So they're going to see extremely limited ownership, especially with Lynn probably seeing quite a bit of ownership in that mid-tier. Chicago, the Cubs, I also think is a really intriguing GPP play, even more so than the Angels. I know they're going up against Tampa Bay, but if you've been paying attention to the bullpens in the league this year, you know that injuries have been plaguing this Tampa Bay bullpen, and they're actually not great. You have like Oakland as cream of the crop, like the worst bullpen in there. Then maybe sprinkle smart teams, and then like Tampa Bay is right at the bottom with them. This is not the Tampa Bay bullpen that we have seen in the past 5 years. You can Google it, just type in like Tampa Bay bullpen, and boom, like you're gonna have a whole bunch of articles of how the bullpen's really been struggling lately. So like I said, Eflin's been a big boomer bust pitcher so far this season. So if he has a big bust game, and then next thing you know, they got to turn to that bullpen. Chicago could be a really intriguing play. Again, pay attention to the weather in Chicago. And this is kind of where everything else shakes out. There's not a whole lot of cheap teams I do like. Leverage spot, I think Detroit could be kind of interesting. Going up against Dunning, just mentioned how like they've been far better within the past month. They kind of have a low strikeout rate against right-handed pitching, so maybe they get some lucky with some BABIP. It wouldn't shock me if Dunning sees some ownership either, just based on his initial numbers when you look at them. So yeah, but I would definitely prefer Lynn in that mid-tier. So that's kind of where I'm going with this slate. Again, with guys like Vargas and Rosario, I mean, even like a guy like Eloy Jimenez, he's been hitting the lights off the ball. He can't hit lights off the ball. But 3.9K, he's been one of the hotter hitters in the entire league within the past week or two. So he's seeing the ball very well right now. He could be a nice sub 4K option for you if you want to go nice and cheap. So that's kind of where everything stands with me on this early slate. Again, thanks for watching. Really do appreciate it. Good luck in your contest as always, and we will see you in the next video.